is what we're doing. So basically, how, starting from cold boilers, how do you get everything going, and what does the boiler room do?
In the beginning, you have, the word comes down from chief engineer through chain of command and back to the boiler tender in charge of the fire room, and he sees to it that the right number of 4 people basically are here to light off. You have to send 1 man topside to make sure the stack covers are off, and then you notify the quarterdeck that you're lighting fires on whichever boiler, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you get down here and make sure your water level is at a normal level by either draining it or starting your emergency feed pump and filling it up, depending on what you need. And then you take your torch, which is that item there, right? And that can is generally full of diesel fuel, and which makes that soaked, with fuel.
Okay.
And then you light it and stick it in that little hole right down there.
Right here?
No, where this little cover is here.
Right here?
Yeah, right in there.
Okay.
Before you
Would
actually
that always be open, or would it be capped?
No, you have to open it.
You have to open it. Okay.
But you have to send one of your crew up here to start a force draft blower to get that, rolling.
That's why you have the blower rooms on the upper levels.
Right.
2 for each. 2
per boiler.
Yeah, let's not forget our fuel oil service pump and our fuel oil heater.
Right. Get all that lined up.
Circulating your fuel oil, get it up to a certain temperature and pressure.
Okay. And those are located
your recirculation.
here?
The 2 pumps over there.
pumps.
Okay.
You have, if you're starting off a real cold plant, dead cold,
Right.
then you would not have steam to heat the oil up, and you would not have steam to run the plant or the pumps. So you would start with your electric service pump, and you would open each one of those little windows, those little blue windows. Right. Open each one of those. No, just the ones on the burners.
Just one on
Right,
those.
these here with the bolts on them, you just fling that open, loosen this up here and open it up, those 4, and then close your hatches and turn your exhaust fan off, your ventilation, and turn your supply fan on high, and that will force air through them little holes.
It creates a draft.
Create a draft, for your furnace. And then with that cold oil coming in, using the very smallest burner size that you can get, or that you have, drop that in number 1 right here.
Okay.
And then put your torch in there and hope you got enough air for it to ignite and keep burning long enough to just warm your boiler up and heat everything up and just wait it out. You generally run your oil pressure by this handle, and your pressure here minimum is 150 and maximum generally is 350.
That's your oil pressure.
Yeah, to the burners.
You also control by your micrometer.
Yeah, you rake back and forth on to give you but you don't want to go below 150.
Okay.
Your circulation of oil coming out of that cone on that
PSI or?
inside the furnace
Okay.
becomes not a smooth cone. It's broken up, and you have air spots, and then you'll smoke and everything else. And the oil doesn't burn right, and then it'll coat the tubes with black oil rather than soot and everything else. And so you just hurt yourself really.
There's a lot of time if you've got and most of the time, if you've got a cold plant that you haven't been on an auxiliary, or if you're not tied up to a dock where you're getting power from the dock, you don't have an electric service pump, then you got to use a handy billy
Yeah.
pumping it like this.
And you have 2 men over there, and they alternate back and forth, keep your pressure up. Ooh, that's a hard way of doing it. I've never seen it done. I've heard people say, yeah, I did it, but I have never seen it done. We always
We've
had
had that happen a lot of times.
We always had the convenience, or at least we had electric pump.
Well, if you're tied up to an installation somewhere where you're getting power from the dock, that's fine, but if you are at sea and you lose the plant and the generators go down and everything else and
you're watering around out
yeah,
in the ocean.
then you gotta use the handy billy pump. It's a hand-operated pump.
The temperatures down here normally are about what?
Well, if you're operating mostly out of Philadelphia, it would run anywhere from 90 to, could be up to 110 degrees.
That's with all 4 boilers?
Now, it all depends on what kind of a fire room you got.
Yeah.
Now, years ago, they had what was known as a closed fire room. You had a single casing boiler, you got a double casing boiler here, and all of your forced air, all of your forced draft comes down through this single casing into your air register. But years ago, instead of having a double casing, you had a single casing boiler, so your whole boiler room was under air pressure.
Pressurized.
Pressurized, your whole boiler was pressurized.
Huh.
And now, if the whole boiler room was pressurized, your forced draft blower was not discharging into your double casing, it was discharging right into the top of the fire room. So those types of fire rooms were a lot cooler than this type of a fire room, where all of your fresh air is coming down through this casing here. It's not getting out into your work area. But even at those, even with a type of fire room like that, it was warm. I would say 100, 105 degrees down, and that's in the South Pacific, something like that.
Yeah.
Which type did you have on New Mexico?
On the New Mexico, it was an older vessel, and she just had the single casing boiler.
Okay.
And your whole fire room was under air pressure. In fact, you came through an airlock up at the top, and you opened the top door, and an alarm rang, and you had to close that. Before you opened the other door, you'd lose all the air pressure in your boiler room. And if you did that, then your fire would jump out through your burners.
And the poor guy standing here
Situation.
got singed.
Yeah.
And especially if you was firing the main battery.
Oh,
If he was firing the main battery, the bridge would always contact the engine room, and we were going to prepare to fire the main battery. The engine room would contact the boiler room, and you would raise your air pressure in your boiler room maybe an inch and a half. If you did not, when they fired the main battery, the concussion would blow your fires out in the work area. Back in that time then, the burnerman wore a great big leather hood, like a welder's helmet, and that's what he used just to prevent from flare back coming back in the boiler room.
And they were hot.
They were hot.